So when preparing this video, something I discovered was that Netflix has been around since 1997. I never realized that. I mean, I had a subscription myself since 2008, although I thought it was still fairly new at the time. Never dawned on me. Anyway, here we go. Remember when Netflix was just a DVD service as an alternative to Blockbuster? For about 15 years, that was their initial business model, where you pay per month, but you can rent up to 3 movies at a time, which at the time was something spectacular. I've seen a lot thanks to that. Most of the movies I own now, it's a result of seeing them first on Netflix. But that changed when they start making their own content, first with TV series in 2013 with House of Cards, and then expanding to distribute movies in 2015, starting with Beasts of No Nation. Fast forward to 2020, where now the company not only has countless TV shows that are worthy of binge watching, but also hundreds of movies labeled as Netflix original movies. I personally think they've had more misses than hits, but their hits can be great, and they're from some of the biggest names in the business, and they just keep growing. The coronavirus pandemic in particular has made them even more popular since, well, what else are you going to do when you're just sitting at home all day? So with an already immensely successful first few years under their belt, I decided to take a look back at some of the best movies released under the Netflix original movies banner. So before I begin, a few things. 1, I have not seen every single Netflix movie out there. That's just impossible. And I even missed a few of them that got really positive reviews. At some point, I'll eventually get around to seeing the ones that I missed. But I have seen a lot, though if there's something that I left off of this list, let me know. Also, I'm not including any movies released in 2020, especially since we're still at the beginning of the year. And while there have been some really good ones released so far, it's still debatable at this time if I'd consider them some of the best Netflix has put out. There's a lot of competition, although maybe that's something worth revisiting towards the end of the year. Oh, and I'm not including any documentaries because I haven't seen many of them. Plus, to rank documentaries against narrative films doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's kind of like apples and oranges. But anyway, let's begin. The honorable mentions are, alphabetically, Apostle, The Babysitter, Gerald's Game, I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, I Lost My Body, Okja, The Perfection, Someone Great, Tallulah, and The Two Popes. And now my top 10 best Netflix original movies. Number 10 is The Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected. Uncut Gems seems to finally be the movie where people realize Adam Sandler can be a legitimately good actor with a great script. But he's had a few movies already where that's proven to be the case. Punch Drunk Love, Reign Over Me, Funny People, which despite its problems I will still defend to this day as a legitimately good movie, and this. Of all his serious roles, I think this is his most nuanced, which is kind of ironic since I think this is the least talked about of all the movies I just mentioned, in my experience at least. Here he plays the brother of Ben Stiller, who also gives one of his best performances to date, and the two get together with the rest of their family to reflect on the legacy of their artist father, played by Dustin Hoffman, and how they've had to live in his shadow for most of their lives. It's written and directed by Noah Baumbach, who's proven time and time again he's one of the masters at heartbreaking family drama. And because of that, what you have here is not just a compelling midlife crisis movie, but a movie tackling themes that we can all relate to, wanting a sense of accomplishment, but not entirely sure what makes us happy. It's very relatable and certainly worth your time. Number 9 is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. The Coen brothers' first and so far only contribution to Netflix is really wonderful. What's nice about them is that they don't necessarily have one particular style, but multiple styles. Yet they all very distinctly feel like Coen brothers movies, and it translates to an eclectic filmography. We've gotten quirky comedies, westerns, film noir, crime dramas. Some movies give us more than one of those, and this incorporates nearly all of them. This anthology movie tells 6 different stories, all westerns, but each with wildly different tones. For example, the first segment, the actual Buster Scruggs story, is a goofy comedy in the vein of Raising Arizona. Meanwhile, the 5th segment, The Gal Who Got Rattled, is a tragic crime drama in the vein of Blood Simple. I'd say while I enjoyed the entire movie, my personal favorite segments are the first, the third, called Meal Ticket, and the 6th, called The Mortal Remains. It's rare you see an anthology movie these days, and even the ones that do come out aren't all that good. Most of them, at least. So the fact the Coens pulled this off was awesome. You get just about every side of them, so there's something here for everyone to enjoy. Number 8 is Roma. For those not aware, this has the distinction of being the very first Netflix movie nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And honestly, at the time, I thought this was a shoo-in to take home the top prize. It's certainly a lot better than the movie that actually won, I'll say that for sure. This was written and directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who's known for his gripping thrillers such as Children of Men and Gravity. This is something a bit more restrained than either of those two movies, although it still retains his personal touch. In fact, this is his most personal movie to date, since he based it off his own upbringing. Everything about this movie feels organic. It's gorgeously shot, with Cuarón also serving as the cinematographer. It's made up of mostly wide shots, although with beautiful images of the city of Roma that feel like they were plucked out of Cuarón's personal photos. Plus, it's exceptionally acted, which is especially noteworthy since all the cast was made up of either non-actors or unknown actors, and they come off as so natural that I forgot that I was watching a movie at times. This is by no means a happy experience. It is gut-wrenching. But there are only so many movies that have as much raw energy as this did, and it's something you certainly don't want to miss. Number 7 is Dolomite Is My Name. Eddie Murphy, how it's nice to have you back. There was a time where Eddie Murphy was on top of the world. Saturday Night Live, a string of successful movies, 2 massively popular stand-up specials. Through the 80s and 90s, there seemed like there was no stopping Eddie Murphy. And then the 2000s rolled around, and that's exactly what happened. With a few exceptions, most of his movies after Shrek were total duds. And by the 2010s, he had all but disappeared. So what's nice about Dolomite Is My Name is that despite being a biopic, it also feels like a very personal movie for Murphy as well. The story of Rudy Ray Moore is similar to Murphy's, having some initial success early on, then waning in popularity, only to achieve superstardom in his later years. So there's an extra level of emotion added when you see this underdog story unfold. And it is wonderful. Not only is this Eddie Murphy's best performance in years, it is absolutely hysterical. If you're a fan of his earlier work, you're going to get a ton of that same energy here. There's wisecracks, insults, profanity-filled tirades. Plus, its supporting cast is top-notch, with Wesley Snipes being the other big standout. There's a lot to enjoy here, and hopefully this is a sign of more to come from Eddie Murphy. Number 6 is Marriage Story. Noah Baumbach appears not once, but twice on this list. How about that? Whereas the Meyerowitz Stories chronicled a broken family coming together, Marriage Story shows us a once happy family falling apart, and it is heartbreaking to watch. While this movie shows us the ugly process of a divorce, what makes this a bit different is that it doesn't paint either side more favorably than the other. The once happily married couple, played by Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, are seen as equally likable people, but they both do things that are also crappy to one another. So you feel bad when one hurts the other because you equally like them both. They just don't get along. But seeing how it affects their psyche, as well as their relationship with their son, makes for an emotionally compelling experience. Though surprisingly, despite showing us a grueling process, it manages to get a few laughs along the way, and the two tones don't clash as much as you think they would. And that's thanks to a fun supporting cast that includes Alan Alda, Ray Liotta, and especially Laura Dern. This one's sure to bring out a lot of emotions, but the journey is certainly worth taking. Number 5 is The Irishman. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, finally together in a Martin Scorsese movie. It took over 50 years and 25 Scorsese movies, but it finally happened. And the wait was certainly worth it. I don't think this is Scorsese's best work ever, and to be fair, it has a lot of stiff competition. But it's up there. If you like classics such as Casino, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, this is right up your alley. And this got a lot of comparisons to Goodfellas in particular. But while Goodfellas is more about excess and gaining power, The Irishman is more about meditating and reflecting and showing restraint. Goodfellas was about a man who looked fondly back on his years in crime, while The Irishman looked back through a lens of regret. And it especially takes note of how the life of crime affected his family life. And while it's a tragic story, it still has that classic Scorsese dark humor. You have guys still insulting each other, being sarcastic to one another, so it's as entertaining as it is emotional. And the performances are all on point. De Niro, Pacino, and in particular Pesci are all at the top of their game here. Truly marvelous stuff. Despite its runtime being 3.5 hours, you'll find yourself wanting more. Number 4 is Cam. By far one of the most underrated movies on this list. This is twisted. I'm a big horror movie fan, and I always appreciate horror movies that manage to subvert expectations and tread new territory. And that's exactly what this does. This stars Madeline Brewer as a successful cam girl whose career, and potentially her life, are threatened when a mysterious doppelganger starts posing as her. In the wrong hands, given the subject matter, this could have easily been one-note, exploitative, and unnecessarily graphic. Instead, we get a smart, well-written movie that gives a strong voice to a character who would have easily been tossed aside in most generic horror movies. Madeline Brewer is excellent, and what makes her excellent is that she has to give 3 totally different performances. the main character Alice, the doppelganger, and the character that Alice plays when she's on camera. And she gets so lost in each of these roles that sometimes you forget it's the same actress. She can be funny when Alice is in character, aggressive and commanding as Alice normally, and cold and sinister as the doppelganger. She is a vastly underrated talent, and I hope she continues to get more roles that allow her to push boundaries and expand her range. Gripping, chilling, and outright creepy, this is one of the best horror movies to be released in recent years. Number 3 is El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. Yeah, I'm probably going to get some flack for including this one. It's a movie that's also a sequel to a TV show that you 100% need to watch in order to view this. And a lot of people argue that it doesn't live up to the show's legacy. But honestly, I love this. Breaking Bad is hands down my favorite TV series of all time. And while I found that ending to be nearly perfect, there was one loose end it needed to tie up. And this served as a nice epilogue to the show, tying up that one loose end. And what's great is it feels like another episode of the show, which normally would be a bad thing when it comes to movie adaptations of TV series. But the thing is, Breaking Bad has always felt cinematic. The entire series is worth watching on the big screen. This film, as well as the show, is gorgeously shot with a lot of scenes of gripping tension. And it's criticized for its pacing, but that slow burn suspense was always a staple in Breaking Bad. So this is no different. Though what really carries this movie is Aaron Paul. The show saw him transform from a one-note joke to one of the most nuanced characters in television history, and his performance here is a culmination of all that. He knocks it out of the park here. While you need to see Breaking Bad first in order to watch this, I highly suggest watching both the show and this movie. You won't be disappointed. Number 2 is Private Life. This is another movie you're probably not going to hear much about. Despite critical acclaim, it was only nominated for a few awards, and word was mostly quiet otherwise. But I gotta say, you're missing out. This stars Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn struggling to have a child, which in turn puts a strain on their marriage. It was written and directed by Tamara Jenkins, whose last film was The Savages in 2007, which is equally as underrated. Like Noah Baumbach, Jenkins shows that she can be masterful at creating family drama. And like Baumbach, she manages to find a nice mix between comedy and drama, really honing in on some of the small absurdities of life to give us a few good laughs, while still telling an engaging dramatic story. Paul Giamatti, he's on his A-game here, bringing most of the film's funniest moments in emotional yet really awkward outbursts, while Kathryn Hahn and newcomer Kaylee Carter are also both a joy to watch. This feels more like a slice-of-life movie. The plot is pretty simple, but it makes up for it by being heavily character-based, and it's a movie that's able to convey so much emotion through simple things such as visual cues and facial expressions. It's subtle yet effective. A refreshingly honest take on family drama, this is nothing short of brilliant. And at number 1 is The Night Comes for Us. Yeah, so this movie's not going to be for everyone. Well, then again, is any movie really for everyone? But yeah, despite this being my top choice, this one's more for a niche audience. Mainly because it's really violent. Like, there's a line when it comes to how grotesque violence in movies is where it just becomes uncomfortable for the sake of it, and I didn't think this movie crossed that line, but it may for some. The plot is also fairly simple. It's about a member of organized crime who leaves his former life and protects a young girl from his old associates. And once that's established, from there, it's a non-stop barrage of over-the-top violent fight scenes. But the thing is, each of these scenes are extremely well done and masterfully choreographed. And if you're a fan of action movies like I am, you're never once going to be bored. Plus, while it's a simple plot, they give you enough about the characters at the beginning of the movie that you have no problem rooting for them. And despite being very action heavy, the actors still give it their all. Joe Taslim, who's the protagonist, is very compelling, while Iko Uwe, who leads the charge against Taslim, is a menacing antagonist. So you feel the stakes the entire time and you're always on the edge of your seat, legitimately concerned if Taslim's going to pull through. So while it's not the most complex movie out there, it still keeps you invested the entire time, with extremely well done action scenes and great performances. And that's enough for me to say this is Netflix's best original movie. So we're only 5 years in and Netflix has a lot of great stuff out there. And I'm sure the quality's only going to continue to go up, especially with the idea of movies premiering on streaming becoming much more popular. And there are a lot of big names attached to upcoming movies for this company. Even Scorsese's in talks to distribute another movie through them, though that's not 100% confirmed as of now. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. So let me know, what are your favorite Netflix original movies? Was it something I listed here? Was it anything I left off? And do you want to see more movies premiere directly to streaming or in theaters? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you like what you see, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.